The moment the security guard pressed the delete key on Amazon servers, he had no idea that in his hands rested the fate of the world's richest man. And yet this story does not begin with secrets or scandals. It begins with something deceptively simple: 8 hours of sleep and a golden sunset in Maui. Jeff Bezos once said, "I get 8 hours of sleep, I prioritize it. Unless I am traveling through different time zones, sometimes it is impossible, but I stay focused on it." He said it with confidence. In an interview about balance, about discipline, about building a life where quiet mattered as much as ambition, but no one could have imagined how ironic those words would sound just months later, for discipline was Bezos' strongest armor waking. At 5 in the morning, following a routine of meditation breakfast meetings and a schedule mapped down to the smallest detail. It was this precision that gave him the tools to build one of the greatest empires in human history. But even the most perfect systems collapse when the human element shifts just slightly, and so the story returns to Maui, where a month ago, Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez stood at the edge of a cliff trading vows as the golden horizon stretched across the Pacific. Waves surrounding them in a light so breathtaking that the world called it the wedding of the decade. Here was the billionaire founder of Amazon marrying the charismatic former television star in front of tech moguls, Hollywood icons, political leaders, and royalty, a union that looked so flawless that every frame, every photo shimmered with a narrative of power, luxury, and eternal love. But history teaches us that the most dazzling facades often mask the deepest cracks. Fairy tales glitter for a while before shadows seep through and the cracks first appeared. Not in obvious betrayal, but in the smallest overlooked details. Witnesses later recalled how Lauren seemed distracted during the ceremony, how she lingered too long in conversation with a tall Amazon executive, how her eyes sometimes wandered even while Bezos spoke with investors, and how she checked her phone in the middle of her own vows to the outside world. It was bridal nerves to insiders. It would soon be read as the first fractures in the glass wall of perfection, because whispers began to surface. Whispers that Lauren Sanchez, already rumored to chase wealth and orbit the circles of power, had grown dangerously close to a man inside Amazon known only as M. Not. Just any executive, but a strategist who, at 42, commanded one of Amazon's most critical divisions with a reputation for brilliance, unpredictability, and ruthless ambition. His office perched high on the 38th floor with glass walls. And panoramic views was not merely a workplace, but a throne, a symbol of influence from which his shadow stretched across Seattle and into the boardrooms of power. It was here that rumors claimed Lauren appeared more than once under reasons never quite explained, and it was here that chance meetings blurred into secrets. On that fateful morning in Seattle, the day seemed ordinary. The skyline shimmered under a cold sun. Bezos prepared for a high-stakes board meeting on artificial intelligence. Lauren, officially scheduled to meet with the PR team to discuss her role as the wife of the world's most visible billionaire, instead found her path crossing with M in the polished elevator. A polite greeting turned into a pause. And by the time they reached the 37th floor, both were seated in the executive lounge, wine glasses in hand. Their voices low, the conversation began with harmless pleasantries. M asking about her adjustment into the demanding spotlight, Lauren replying about cameras flashing about, the suffocating weight of being scrutinized every second of every day. And slowly their talk shifted into confession. M shared the crushing solitude of corporate power, the isolation that comes when everyone salutes you but no one truly knows you. Lauren confessed the loneliness of a gilded cage, the fear that love and freedom had been replaced by image and performance. And in that quiet moment, they were no longer billionaire and strategist, no longer the symbols of empire, but two weary humans searching for understanding. It was then that the faint click of a hidden security camera caught a blurred gesture. M leaning closer. Lauren not moving away, a kiss, but not a kiss. Like lovers steal in shadows, rather. Something fragile, a contact of two souls forgetting consequences for a heartbeat. But blurry as the footage was, it was enough because in the skyscraper kingdom of Amazon, perception mattered more than proof. Soon, the images began to drift through. Whispered networks inside the company's screens flickered with grainy stills of Lauren and M, their silhouettes behind glass walls. Rumors thickened, questions sharpened, and within hours, the gossip climbed the ladders of hierarchy until it brushed against the very edges of Bezos' ears. But the true drama lay not in the act, but in the discovery. Tom Anderson, a 35-year-old security engineer, stumbled upon the file while performing routine checks. He paused, stared, and immediately recognized the faces. He knew who Lauren was. Everyone did. He knew M and his influence. He also understood instantly that this was more than a simple security anomaly. It was a fuse that, if lit, could detonate the very foundations of Amazon at first. He considered deleting the file after all his duty was to protect, not to expose, but instinct pulled his hand back. He encrypted the footage, copied it onto a hard drive, and locked it away, thinking perhaps he would never need it. But that decision chained him to a destiny he could not escape, because secrets inside billion-dollar empires never stay buried for long. And what began as whispers soon turned into quiet knives drawn in the boardrooms. People who had toasted the wedding in Maui now leaned close to Bezos, advising him to end the marriage, to cut ties before scandal drowned him. Friends called with warnings. Marcus Stein, a Silicon Valley investor, told him, "Jeff, you built an empire on control. Do not let this destroy you yet." Bezos' reply revealed something rare. "Marcus, what if the problem is not her? What if it is me, a moment of vulnerability from a man the world thought incapable of doubt?" The wedding in Maui had seemed like a dream, woven out of gold, a beachfront villa transformed into a paradise that cost over $2 million. For a single weekend, the canopy of flowers stretched wider than the waves petals flown in from Ecuador. The Netherlands and New Zealand shimmered in the breeze. The guest list read like a roll call of the world's elite. Leonardo DiCaprio landed in a private jet. Oprah Winfrey arrived with a rare book collection as a gift Prince Albert of Monaco brought. Royal glamour. Fortune 500 CEOs brushed shoulders with Oscar winners. Candlelight flickered across Venetian glass tables, while music and laughter echoed until dawn. Lauren wore a Valentino gown worth nearly $500,000. Its sweeping train, brushing through orchids flown in from English gardens, while Bezos, in a custom Armani tuxedo, looked like the embodiment of financial and personal perfection. For that one day, the media declared it a fairy tale love sealed in the most spectacular ceremony of the decade. But within the sparkle, small shadows already lurked. Insiders noticed that Bezos' frown returned whenever Lauren spoke lightly of lavish spending or impulsive trips. Friends whispered that their conversations were less tender, more like battles conducted in silence, each subtle jab leaving a mark beneath the flawless surface. Money was the invisible weight Lauren, accustomed to luxury, but never to limitless resources, sometimes slipped in comments that revealed how differently she and Jeff viewed wealth, and those differences, though small, began to pile into invisible mountains. Yet still, the public image had to remain flawless. They sailed the seas aboard the $500 million yacht they appeared. At the Met Gala, at Cannes, at galas where photographers captured smiles that looked effortless, but beneath the flashbulbs the cracks widened. Lauren basked in attention, her appetite for glamour endless, while Bezos obsessed over control, guarding not just his empire, but the story of his marriage. The two forces collided daily, each headline about extravagant purchases. Each rumor of indulgence threatened to overshadow his vision for philanthropy and innovation. And when they returned from the honeymoon, settling into the $165 million Beverly Hills mansion and the glass penthouse in Seattle, those cracks began to spread wider still. The morning they walked into Amazon headquarters together was meant to be symbolic, to show that Lauren could belong within the beating heart of the empire, but instead the day spiraled into something far darker. Witnesses described a heated argument over Lauren's use of the company jet. To Switzerland, Bezos' voice turned sharp, Lauren's eyes icy. The tension followed them into the gleaming lobby where smiles masked storm clouds. Bezos hurried off to his board meeting, leaving Lauren in the hands of her assistant and in the vast glass building, Lauren's path once more crossed with M. What followed was small talk, laughter, a touch on the arm, an echo down the hall. But in a fortress where every gesture is observed, those moments became dangerous currency that evening as Bezos spoke before the board of directors in a presentation about the future of Amazon Web Services. Lauren and M were seen entering his corner office overlooking Elliott Bay. Behind the glass doors, no one could say for certain what occurred, but speculation spread like wildfire. Some whispered they crossed lines, others insisted it was nothing more than human comfort. Yet in the realm of billion-dollar companies, perception becomes truth. And within hours, coded messages and blurry images began to circulate. The empire was no longer whispering, it was rumbling on the edge of eruption, and in the center of it all stood Tom Anderson, holding the key that could decide whether the flames consumed everything. By the next morning, the whispers had hardened into shadows moving. Across Amazon's highest floors, hushed conversations in glass hallways, glances exchanged in elevators, silent calculations made in boardrooms, the alleged footage had transformed rumor into threat, and in the middle of it all, Tom Anderson sat alone. In his modest apartment, staring at the encrypted drive that held the grainy clips, every line of his contract told him to erase it, to pretend he had never seen it. But every instinct told him the opposite. This was not just a security anomaly. This was a fracture that, if ignored, could sink not only a marriage, but a company that touched millions of lives across the globe. He replayed the video again and again, blurry images distorted by glass and distance. Lauren leaning forward, M resting his, hand against her arm, a kiss. Or was it something else? A shadow across a reflection? Anderson knew how these fragments would be interpreted. He knew that once they escaped into the bloodstream of tabloids, the story would no longer be about truth. It would be about spectacle, and spectacle could move markets, destroy reputations, and ignite chaos on a scale. No firewall could contain already executives whispered behind closed doors, some dismissing it as office gossip, others sharpening knives. Seeing opportunity in Bezos' potential humiliation, some spoke of crisis management, others of succession plans. The empire felt suddenly fragile, and in the middle of that fragility stood one man, an engineer, whose decisions until now had been about firewalls and passwords, but now involved the private life of the world's richest man. Tom considered deleting it once and for all, pressing the key that would bury the footage forever. But he hesitated because he understood that if he erased it, others who had already seen fragments could twist the narrative into something far worse. He realized he was not protecting a billionaire. He was protecting the truth inside a machine that thrived on manipulation and control. Meanwhile, Bezos continued unaware of how deep the fire spread, his phone vibrating endlessly with calls from friends and allies. Marcus Stein, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, all telling him the same thing. Act quickly, act decisively in a world where reputations take decades to build, and a single day to collapse indecision was fatal. But Bezos hesitated. His strength had always been control. And now he felt control slipping through his fingers. Lauren, for her part, walked through the mansion in Beverly Hills silent. Her phone lighting up with messages she refused to answer, a storm building outside the glass walls. Her face unreadable, M placed on leave, scrambling to defend himself, denying everything, yet powerless against shadows that whispered louder than words. The empire waited for Bezos to strike. But instead, the strike came from the shadows of his own company. A senior executive jealous of M and resentful of Lauren, quietly feeding the flames, leaking stills, whispering poison, weaving half-truths into narratives that hardened into apparent fact. And all the while, Tom Anderson knew that the real story was different, that what the video truly showed was not betrayal, but a fragile human moment. A forehead kiss, not an affair, a gesture of comfort. Not seduction, and he knew that if the false story continued unchecked, the damage could be irreversible. He knew that the fate of Amazon and of Bezos himself might depend not on a boardroom or a courtroom, but on whether one ordinary engineer had the courage to reveal what he had really seen and to erase the poison planted by a man who craved power more than truth. And then it happened, the moment that would determine the future of a marriage, an empire, and the fragile illusions of power. Tom Anderson stepped into Bezos' private office, the encrypted drive clutched tightly in his hand. The weight of unseen, worlds pressing down on him. He laid out everything, the blurry footage, the misinterpretations, the whispers, the lies spread by a jealous senior executive. He told of the moments behind the glass, the faint kiss that was not a kiss of passion, but a gesture of human comfort. M calming Lauren in a crisis of emotion. A single forehead touch that had been twisted into scandal. Bezos listened in silence, the man who had built an empire on control, who had commanded attention and feared betrayal, now felt the gravity of vulnerability settle into his chest. He saw in Anderson's eyes the honesty that no boardroom, no media narrative, no rumor could fabricate, and in that quiet realization, he understood the danger had not been Lauren or M, but the manipulation of perception. the subtle engineering of distrust that could topple even the strongest foundations. The truth unveiled a clear path. M was exonerated, promoted for his composure and professionalism. Lauren received a heartfelt apology from her husband. Their conversations deepened their understanding of boundaries, trust and communication stronger. Then before, the orchestrator of chaos, the vice president, whose envy had fanned flames, was swiftly removed, facing lawsuits and corporate sanctions. The empire stabilized, but the lessons lingered in the halls of Amazon in the mind of Jeff Bezos. 8 hours of sleep were no longer merely a personal ritual. They became sacred time for reflection, for recalibration, for the understanding that even the most powerful men must sometimes place trust in others to safeguard what truly matters. That ordinary acts of courage like Tom Anderson's willingness to confront truth rather than succumb to fear can save not only lives, but reputations, fortunes, and the delicate fabric of human relationships. And so when the security guard finally pressed the delete key on Amazon servers, he was not erasing scandal, he was erasing falsehoods. He was affirming honesty over deception, light over shadow. And in that act, a simple human gesture proved more powerful than billions of dollars, more potent than influence or fame. It reminded the world that even in the cold towers of corporate dominance, the warmth of courage, integrity, and trust could prevail. And as Bezos and Lauren rebuilt their marriage, and Amazon strengthened its protocols, the story remained a testament that behind every empire are human hearts, vulnerable to doubt, fear, and jealousy, and that it often takes one courageous individual to remind the mighty that truth is the most valuable currency of all. And so the lesson endures even as the world continues to chase spectacle and scandal. The real power lies in understanding, in patience, in the quiet bravery to act rightly in the face of temptation. And that is how a simple act of conscience, a press of a button, and the courage to tell the truth preserved not only the legacy of the world's richest man, but also the fragile bonds of trust and love that sustain us all. All information in this video is based on reputable sources and is for informational purposes only. While we strive for accuracy, we encourage viewers to explore multiple sources for a complete view. No harm or offense is intended.